Okay, let's talk a little bit about the process of taking a tub full of batteries like that and finding out how many amp hours you got. First thing you do is you take the voltage, and if you wind up with less than 2 volts, as that particular pair of cells has 1.79, you can try to put them all together in a tray, either separately, in pairs, in fours, or in this long tray, depending on how many batteries you have that are less than 2 volts. As long as you have something greater than 0, you can try to put some batteries that are 0 volts in here along with them and see if they will start to charge up. However, you will have to check the temperatures very often, because if you've got a bad cell in there, it's going to heat up like right now. Even though I'm charging them with a $2 charger you can get off eBay. It's real cheap. It has disadvantages, but it has some advantages. And sometimes the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. If you'll notice, the springs tend to drop down and hide inside, so you can't even get a hold of a cell to charge it. So what I've got an alligator clip clipped to the one spring, and that goes over here to the negative terminal. And the positive, I've got a little super magnet on there. That's hooked to the positive rail, and it's putting out basically what you see right now, 2.87 volts. All of these were under 1 volt. Other than one, you've got to have one that's over 2 volts to pretty much get this thing started. If it doesn't have at least 2 volts to get going, you won't be able to do this. Now, the reason I don't worry too much about cells that are under 1 volt is I've tried this before. Every purplish cell you see there was reading 0 volts. And now if you test across them, they're reading 2.87. That doesn't mean they're going to stay at 2.87 once you pull them out of this. But it is a way to take the cells that have 0 voltage to a small amount of voltage and see if you can bring them back. And bring them back by, you've seen the videos where they just kind of pair them up with a good cell and see if they will do that. Just putting them in parallel here will start to raise the voltage on these ones, if they're any good at all, if it's possible to raise the voltage on them. If they're short-circuited out, that won't do anything. It'll just overheat, and then you do it, pull it out there. But you can try this. The reason I don't worry too much about it is I haven't seen much indication that you actually get a lot of capacity out of it. Once you charge them up enough, then you can put them on the TP4056 charger boards, charge them up to about 4.08 to 4.17. After I do that, I take them and I put them on Yahoo's board to try to get them as close to 4.2 as I can. Okay, so there it's 4.2 volts, 1.4 amps. That 1.4 amps will keep dropping, and try to get them as close to 4.2 as I can. And then I put them on the discharger boards. The singles, I put on the 4 ohm resistor. The pairs, I put on the 2 ohm resistors. And the singles again, I put on the light bulbs. Then you have to just sit here and patiently wait until these drop to 3 volts. When they drop to 3 volts, you look at the time. In this case, I started at noon. If I pull them out right now, they're 1/2 of 1 amp hour, which is pretty much useless. But that's how you have to do it. You have to sit here until hopefully you get to 3 o'clock. If you get to 3 o'clock, that means you've got some cells that have 3 amp hours, which is excellent. Now these 5, kind of a purplish color right here, those were the ones that are at 0. And by using the little screwdriver trick, I managed to get them to show some voltage. Is you're going to take a small jeweler's screwdriver, stick it through the vent holes, push down, and see whether there's any voltage that shows after we do this. Very dangerous. No one else should try this. But it's a last-ditch effort if you think you have a cell that actually might have some voltage. And there's a little cap that pops up if it gets too much pressure on it. And all you're trying to do is push that little cap down without touching the positive to the negative. That's the trick of this whole thing. And by sitting on this charger off and on for about 4 or 5 days, we finally got these things up to be about 3.22 volts each. So what I'm going to do is I've taken all of the cells out of this charging board right here. We're going to put these cells in here and try to charge them up as close to 4.2 as we can, and then we're going to discharge them and see whether it was actually worthwhile to even spend time with these type of batteries. Okay, so now those 10 batteries that were in that charger together to get up to 3.23 volts are now sitting each in its own individual TP4056 charger, all 10 cells. So we're going to charge them up over 4 volts, and then we're going to discharge them and see what their capacities are. Let's start loading these up and see how we do. Immediately they start dropping. So I just put that one in, and you see how fast it dropped from 4. Now it's down to 2.9, so that is absolutely no good. That one's 2.97 already. It hasn't even been a couple of minutes. So those two are definitely bad from the word go. And that's only 3.26. That's not going to last long. 3.45, 3.43. 3.29. These immediately have to come out. That's a pair. That just dropped down within 5 minutes. It's been 30 minutes. Let's see how we're doing. 323, 340, 360. 333, 311, 301, that one's done. 320, and the one at the bottom is 311. The little red one at the bottom is 311. So 1/2 hour for that one. So he's got to come out of there. It's about 40 minutes. And that one right there is just getting ready to give up the ghost. So 40 minutes in on that. 0.7 amp hours. So it's been 1 hour, and these are the batteries that are left. That one's not going to last much longer at 314. That one's 330. That one's 349. That's the one that's going to last the longest right there, those pair of orange cells. 3.21, 3.11, and this one, 3.04. I'll drop into 3.03. This has been an interesting cell. It dropped to 3.11 right off the bat, and it sat there. It sat there for this whole hour and just slowly drained to where now it's reaching the, we'll get to 3 volts here pretty soon. So it's not usable for anything. It's just, it was interesting. It was just that I've never seen a cell do that before, drop so quickly and then just hang there. Well, that one's going back. 25 after 1. That's down to 306. 312. That one's down to 301. So that one's got to come out at 1 hour and 25 minutes in, 1.45 amp hours. It's 1.5 hours. That cell is just about done. That's 1.5 amp hours for that cell. Not bad for a cell that was reading 0 volts. Well, it's 1 hour and 55 minutes. And that cell right there almost made it to 2 amp hours. So 1.95 amp hours for that particular cell. And this is one of the cells that was 0 until I poked a little screwdriver in the end and made a reconnection on it. So that's not bad, 2 amp hours from a cell that was reading absolutely 0. I guess the conclusion of that is that if you're reading absolutely 0 and getting no readings at all, it might be worth your while to try to take a little jeweler screwdriver and put it in the hole and try to push that top back on there again. In this case, 2 amp hours. Almost. And finally, after 2.5 hours, I've got 1 cell left. So 2.5 hours, that's great to get a 2.5 amp hour cell, especially out of one that was expected not to have anything. So 1 out of 12 turned out to be really good. That's not bad. Whether or not you think that's worthwhile to do, because that took a long time to charge all these up to get these ready to do a capacity test. So whether or not you think that's worth it or not is entirely up to you.